My brother and sister and I, we tried to help Jesus in every way we could. Day and night, we kept our doors open. We fed him, we sheltered him, we tried to give him everything he asked. Even in that last week, when we were so sure that the authorities were scheming to arrest him and kill him, we tried to give Jesus everything he asked. The problem was, he asked a lot. The hardest thing he asked involved my brother Lazarus. You may know something of the story. Lazarus got really, really sick. And we sent for Jesus when we realized how serious it was. Jesus was only a few miles away, so we knew he would come. Thing is, he didn't. Lazarus got sicker and sicker, and every day he called out, "Where is Jesus? Where is Jesus?" And believe me, Mary and I were asking ourselves the same thing. Lazarus did die, and we buried him in a stone tomb, and then we went home to mourn. And 4 days later, some neighbor kid comes running into the house, and he says, "Guess who I saw in the road?" Jesus and some of the disciples coming over the hill. So I went out there to meet him. And I'll admit, when I saw him, I was filled with rage. And I got right up in his face and I said, "Lord, if you had been here, Lazarus would not have died." And Mary Magdalene's pulling on my arm and saying, calm down. And I can't calm down. I get right back up in his face and I say, "Tell God to fix it. I know if you ask, God will fix it." And don't you hate it when you're totally losing it on somebody and they get right up to you and all calm and collected and they're like, "I can see that you're very upset about this." Yeah. So there's Jesus. He comes up to me. He says, "Lazarus will rise again." And I'm like, I know on the last day he's gonna rise again. We all will. I'm talking about now. I'm talking about today. But he just goes on in his patient teacher voice. He says, "I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, will live. And those who live and believe in me, even though they die, will never die." Do you believe this, Martha? And I'm like, what is this? A pop quiz? We don't have time for this. But, you know, I went to go get my sister Mary because she can get through to people. She's more charming than I am. And so, but before I did, I looked at him and I said, "Since you asked, there is something I've figured out about you. Fine, and I'm going to tell you, even though I don't really see what the point is right now. Lord, you are the Messiah. You are the Son of God. You are the one coming into the world, and I'm going to go get Mary." So I go get Mary, see if she can get through to him, and she jumps up. I tell her, "Guess what? Jesus is asking for you." So she jumps up, she runs out, and all the other people who are mourning at our house run after her because they think she's going to go to the tomb to pray. So she runs out in the road and she finds him and she drops down on her knees crying and she looks up at him and she says, "Lord, if you had been here, Lazarus would not have died." And yeah, Jesus is looking at me a little bit then, but I just shrug. I mean, I didn't tell her to say that. So Jesus looks down and there's Mary crying and he starts crying too. I mean, she has that effect on people. She's charming. And he says, or one of our neighbors says, "You know, Lazarus was really beloved of Jesus. You can see because Jesus is crying." And my other neighbor says, "Yeah, well, if he loved the guy so much, you'd think he could have kept him from dying. I mean, here he is running all over the countryside, healing total strangers, making blind beggars see. You think he could have taken some time out of his busy schedule to heal his best friend?" And I'll admit, I was feeling pretty gratified about the effect that this was having on the teacher. Jesus said, "Take me to the tomb." And I did. And out of respect, all the other people dropped back, leaving me and Jesus in front of Lazarus' tomb. I thought we were going to pray, so I put out my hands, and Jesus pushes them down and says, "No, take away the stone." I look at him, I say, "Are you serious? He's been dead for 4 days. The smell is gonna be horrible." And Jesus said, "Did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God?" And I'm thinking, oh, see the glory, right. Hold on a second.
And now, please join me in welcoming Jesus and his traveling rabbi show featuring his faithful assistant, Martha of Bethany.
So the teacher's looking at me really seriously then. He's got a question in his eyes, and that question is, are you with me, Martha, or not? He wants to make sure I understand what he is asking. And it's my decision, my choice to play this part in the show. And I consented. I consented to the scent for the sake of the message. You know, generally it's my people's practice to bury our dead, and then we're forbidden to go anywhere near the grave for a whole week. I think our ancestors knew staying away for these nosy days would spare us from the pain of this particular form of knowledge, nose knowledge. When the flesh was sufficiently dry, we could come back and claim the bones. The bones were of this world. What needed to leave, the soul, the essence, the juice, would be gone. And we would be left with what we could handle. You know, dust to dust skips over all the juicy bits in the middle. All the body life. To smell Lazarus's body rotting would be to know in some inescapable way that he was truly dead. The nose knows in a way that the eyes cannot. And so the teacher looked at me with the question, "Are you with me, Martha, or not?" And I said, no. 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 Oh. I said, yes. And they rolled away the stone, and the smell was as horrible as I thought. But I didn't have a lot of time to think about it, because now Jesus did want to pray, and he puts out his hands, and he looks up, and he says in a voice that really only I can hear, he says, "Father, I know that you always hear me, but I'm saying this for the sake of the crowd behind me, that they may believe that you sent me." And then in a louder voice, he says, "Lazarus, come out." Drum roll, please. Ha! And he did. He did come out. And here he is, staggering out, blinking in the sunlight, wrapped in this horrible cloth. And Jesus says, "Unbind him and let him go." And believe me, Mary and I raced each other to get to him first and unwrap him and rewrap him in our cloaks, and we have never felt so much joy. And the people who were there, of course, were astonished. And many of them cried out to Jesus, "Messiah, Messiah," and became believers right then. Like the prophet Ezekiel, being told by God to prophesy to the bones of our exiled ancestors, to tell them, "Put on flesh and walk." I was asked to be part of this unfolding God show. But I'm not special, and neither was Ezekiel or Lazarus or Mary. We are all asked to play a part in this show, to accept our role willingly and to play it with courage and boldness, to spread the message. Our God is a demanding God. He asks a lot, but not more than we can give. Drum roll, please.